Welcome to the Let's Talk About Love, Sex, and Infidelity podcast with your host, Todd Krieger. Todd has over 35 years of experience working with thousands of couples as a licensed therapist in his private practice. Todd shares his insights on this show. It's never too early to divorce-proof your marriage or too late to heal yourselves and have the relationship you truly want.
Hi, everybody. This is Todd Krieger, and today I am talking to you about love as a healing force for trauma. We know trauma is very painful. It is very disruptive to our bodies and our minds and our hearts. It means that we're going through an experience that is too much for us to just metabolize and process and get through and move on. Trauma oftentimes takes a toll because oftentimes we are alone in it, that people didn't know enough or weren't there enough or weren't capable enough to be with us in it. So how can love be a force? Let's look at what love is. Love, the way I define it, love is a little undefinable, don't you think? But I would say the best definition I've ever had of love is the capacity of paying attention. If I pay attention to someone, especially with care, that's love. That's probably as close to love as I could think of. Paying attention with love, paying attention with care. So if I am paying attention to someone's experience and tuning into them, I would say that's a pretty good definition of love. Love means that I see you as a person who's valuable and who I take your well-being very seriously. So when a person is traumatized, of course, the ability to be with that person as they go through their trauma can really help them process it. Studies show that when people have someone there, when they go through a very difficult, which could be traumatic experience, but they have someone there that's loving them right from the beginning, that do not often develop post-traumatic stress disorder. However, people who go through a traumatic experience and there's nobody there to tune into them, to give them attention with care, they oftentimes, almost always have post-traumatic stress disorder. I shouldn't say almost always, but oftentimes they do. Oftentimes they do. Definitely increases the chances of that. So when a person has gone through trauma and we give them love and we're there for them right from the beginning, we're probably one of the major reasons why that person won't develop PTSD. They were able to process that trauma, that very difficult negative experience, because they had you or me or whoever is the person who's loving them. Again, attending with care. It's very important. Attending, when a person doesn't get that kind of attention with care growing up, that can be very traumatizing. And they do develop a certain kind of PTSD. It's called little T's, little trauma or complex trauma, where they've grown up in an environment where parents couldn't or wouldn't be able to give them attention for their inner world with care. Maybe some of them got their physical needs met, but not their emotional needs met. So the absence of love can create trauma. The presence of love is a great preventer of trauma, but the presence of love when a person has been traumatized is a great healing factor. I think that even though I do a lot of great work with people that are traumatized, and I use approaches such as EMDR, movement desensitization and reprocessing, and there's some wonderful practice strategies, can't think of the word, practice models, I guess the best way to say is in IFS, internal family systems, very loving. Why does EMDR and IFS, why do they work? Probably for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons is it's loving. EMDR process, it recognizes the traumatized person and understands trauma. And so the person who's going through that kind of therapy isn't only getting the benefits of the techniques, but they're getting a therapist who can attune to them in ways because they understand. And there's that relationship contingent in therapy that is very loving, that helps people process. In internal family systems, once again, the therapist trained in that is very loving, honors the person. And IFS, internal family systems, talks about many different parts that people have. And the therapist can hold a very loving, very attention with care approach with the person in all their parts. And the good IFS therapist also teaches the person to learn how to have a loving presence to their parts, their wounded parts, their protected parts, their traumatized parts. And as they develop that sense of love that they have, it just has to be accessed. Healing happens. That's why some of these approaches, and IFS and EMDR, they're not the only ones, but why they're so effective, you can't delete the part of it that is about love, whether it's helping the client love him or herself or their parts, having appreciation for the person who's been wounded, the part that's been wounded, or also the therapist care as well. So now moving off of therapy, of course, then we also have just love, parental love. When a child is bullied, we have found when a parent can love the child through it, in other words, be attentive with care to what they're going through, it oftentimes gives them a foundation of strength so that they can deal with the bullying differently. Just an example of parent-child. Helping older people, older parents or grandparents that are going through challenging later in life physical issues. There's no question that love makes that easier. Love makes the transition of death easier. And that can be traumatic in itself when a person is losing their physical abilities, their health, and maybe ultimately losing their life. Now, that's definitely one part of the spectrum where love can really make even a smooth transition for people that are at the end of their time on this earth. And then, of course, working with partners, intimate partners, love makes a difference. Couples that are having issues with each other, all couples have their issues, find oftentimes that it's hard to give attention with care because they need attention with care. So the challenge for couples is when we both need attention with care, we're both clamoring for it, how do we give it? And so a lot of what I do with people that need to work through relationship trauma with each other is to help them learn how to love themselves enough so that they can now love the other. Because I know that love, which comes in many different shapes and sizes, is what's needed to help heal trauma. When a person is in trauma and they can take care of, let's talk about personal, like love for self, okay? When a person is traumatized, one of the things they have to do is learn to love, give care, attention with care to their bodies, breathe, self-nurture, eat well, take good care, get enough rest. I might have said that twice. Yeah. Treat themselves to being around people that care about them. So that's one way of caring about ourselves, being around people that care about us. This all can be very healing in working with someone who's had trauma, whether they're in the full throes of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, or not. Love really matters. In a partnership, when there's been trauma in the relationship, if I could slow down enough to love me, take care of me, recognize that it's my loving part to myself that's going to have the capacity to love my partner, then I need to do that first sometimes so that I have the presence to love my partner and help them through their trauma. Even if I was the one that really was the cause of that trauma. I do that a lot of work with people that has been infidelity, and this is trauma in and of itself. Infidelity is a built-in trauma. So many reasons that are obvious. But the betrayed person needs to learn how to love themselves through that trauma. The person who betrayed needs to learn to love themselves through that trauma. A person who did the betrayal, if they're so busy beating up on themselves for what they did, it's nice they're not a sociopath. They feel bad about it, but they're not really helping their partner heal through the trauma when they're so self-absorbed in their own anger and self-loathing. It's really very important to love ourselves so that we love the other. In terms of loving the other person, you might not have experienced the trauma that they're experiencing. You probably didn't. We're all different, even our intimate partner of many years. But you want to pay attention with care again. What does that mean? You drop your agenda. That's very loving. You give up. You put your agenda aside. You get less interested in self and more interested in the other person because you want to be a healing force in the trauma. Whether you had something to do with that trauma or not, you want to be that healing force for that person. And you only could do that if you drop your agenda and you get very interested in what they're going through and you let them know, I love you. And you let them know not just with words, but with the actions demonstrating I'm interested in you. I'm meeting you where it hurts. That's the key. The healing trauma is to have people that meet with you where it hurts. That's the way trauma gets processed and resolved. Whether you're in a clinical relationship with a therapist such as myself, or you're in a marital relationship, or it's a family relationship or a friend relationship, that is how it works. You meet the partner in their hell. Doesn't mean you have to feel their hell, but you need to be a partner in their pain. That's loving. Being a partner in pain, which I call PIP, a PIP. To be a PIP is loving. You're attending with care. And that is how people begin to resolve their trauma. And like I said, when it comes to healing from trauma, maybe love isn't the only thing. Maybe having a good therapist that can help you process things in ways that maybe it's hard to do on your own, sure. But it's that loving part of the therapeutic relationship that helps. So we always want to remember the importance of attention with care when we're helping a person move through trauma. It's a powerful force. It's a very powerful force. And I've helped many partners in trauma who feel like, what do? I can't fix it. Sometimes you can't do a direct fix. But if you care about them and you're tuned into them, you're interested in them, and you show that with love, you have now played a huge part. You have utilized your highest power, the power of love, as corny as that might sound, to help that person heal. You want to trust that people heal through love. They're able to heal, open their hearts, expand their energy, and have some breakthroughs so they could move past it and be back in the present and feel their healthy self again. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Using love as an amazing healing force, maybe the most important healing force for trauma. Thanks for listening. This is Todd Krieger, making the world safe for love.
That's it for today's episode of Let's Talk About Love, Sex, and Infidelity podcast with your host, Todd Krieger. For free resources and materials, head over to toddkrieger.com. Loved this episode? Head over to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and leave a review. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you.